Welcome to the Palais des Congrès in Paris. We are at the 2019 edition of the .next on Tour conference organized by Nutanix, and we have the pleasure to meet with Satyam Vaghani, who is CTO of Nutanix. Satyam Vaghani, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We're going to start with something pretty simple. That at the very beginning of Nutanix, you pioneered the idea of hyper-converged systems to integrate the three functions: storage, computing, and network in the same scope.
Right.
And then after that, you moved to the idea was to move this architecture on the cloud to give the opportunity of a customer to go on what we call today hybrid cloud.
Right.
And they give the opportunity for enterprise to move everything seamlessly from their own data center to the cloud. This is the idea that you could give us some more detail.
For sure. We think it's a natural expansion of the scope of the enterprise cloud operating system that we are on the journey to creating. We think the initial scope was solving the data center problem by converging, as you said, compute, networking, and storage. But now in the multi-cloud world, the question is, what is the equivalent of vMotion for multiple clouds? What is the equivalent of a control and a data plane that spans across multiple clouds, so that the clouds of today that you know of, public clouds, private clouds, edge clouds, can just be treated like servers tomorrow. Every server is fungible, and your workload would move to the right place, i.e. the right cloud, as and when it needs it.
But did you have the idea, when you started the company, of course you started with the idea of hyper-converged system, but did you have the idea of the moving to the cloud, or this came naturally after that?
I think it came naturally as we progressed as a company. We solved a lot of problems in the data center, but what we realized is now literally the entire industry is standardizing on the hyper-convergence form factor as the core building block of a data center. If you think about public cloud providers, that's the form factor that they build their data centers with. And that's what Nutanix did for the rest of the world that was running in the private cloud. And so now that we have that standardization in form factors, we think there is a natural progression in terms of how we can add value one layer above that software stack to merge all these, what used to be separate silos, into one computing and storage and networking fabric.
So of course now you present Nutanix as a software company, right? And I suppose Nutanix software could be used on every kind of equipment, hardware, right?
Right.
That's the idea. So you are on the hybrid cloud, and then of course you're also interested in different areas. One of them is growing a tremendous space is edge computing.
Right.
It seems that everything today, when you have the cloud and everything else is edge computing. Is this the case, and what do you do in this area?
Yeah, admittedly, I think that term is very overused. Everybody is jumping on the bandwagon. But it looks like there's a lot of momentum behind edge computing, because there's a core realization that a lot of future assets, a lot of future technology assets, especially in the enterprise world, let's say retail or healthcare or manufacturing or smart cities, those assets are going to be in the real world, close to where humans are, and that's edge computing. As far as Nutanix is concerned, our key contribution to edge computing, if you will, is going to be about the fact that edge computing really dramatically explodes the data center problem. It used to be very hard to run a single data center, and now with edge computing, every potential enterprise will need to run potentially hundreds or thousands of mission-critical data centers. Every hospital is going to be a mission-critical data center, or every retail store is going to be a mission-critical data center, or every factory, or every airport, or every railway station. And so the Nutanix value proposition in that world is, how can we create operations and application lifecycle management stack that can manage this extremely dispersed infrastructure in a very controlled manner.
Okay. This means that you will have to find the right balance of where to put the resource, either on the data center internally of the company and on the different edge computing. How do you solve that problem?
Right. So, in fact, we'd have to create potentially brand new resource management kind of layers, which figure out which workloads belongs where, and potentially moves it there on behalf of the end user. In fact, you probably have seen the beginning of that journey with Nutanix products like Xi Beam, which is a way for people to understand at a very granular level what each workload is doing and what it is costing them, so that they can potentially make core decisions about which cloud is the best cloud for a particular workload. Going forward, you will also see us marrying that kind of control plane topic with a lot of kind of data plane innovation. An example I can give you is in the IoT area, where we think that almost all IoT applications, enterprise IoT applications, have some component that runs on the edge and some component that runs in the cloud. An example is a smart car, a driverless car, where a lot of inference about whether the car is going to run into the car in front of it or not is happening on the car. But the machine model that the car is running, the AI model, is trained in the cloud. And so we are creating, for example, constructs like data pipelines, which marry the edge with your core data center or your public cloud infrastructure.
So you have a lot of development in the IoT area, which is one of part of the edge computing, but it's more specific. Do you have any work on that?
For sure. We work in IoT, and in fact, we have a product specifically meant for IoT. It is called Xi IoT. And the idea is to allow operators to deploy edge computing at a large scale, and for developers to be able to use very new technology constructs like analytics or AI or containerized applications on the edge to create these new classes of IoT applications that, in our opinion, are going to be more and more focused on getting core insights out of data. And because the core insights is really what's going to produce everlasting value for the enterprise.
Well, I was a little bit surprised because you just used the term AI for the first time, pretty late in the interview. And it looks that because we are talking about a lot of volume of data that are inconceivable. I mean, so great. We used to have analytics, big data, and now we have AI, specifically deep learning and machine learning and deep learning.
Right.
Do you have any research on that area?
We do have some work going on in the AI area, and specifically the problem we are trying to solve. There are many companies or research institutions that are trying to make the core AI frameworks more mature than they currently are. The problem we are trying to solve is how do you democratize AI so that any potential enterprise in the world who needs AI can use it.
So democratize in two ways, I suppose, in terms of cost and in terms of the usability. I mean, like everybody could use it, even though they are not specialists in,
Exactly.
That's the idea.
Exactly. How can you use it in a very productive manner without employing a team of 100 data scientists, which are very hard to procure in the first place?
Do you have one use case that could be interesting, that the application of AI in IoT, for example?
Yes, in fact, we have a few. One of them is local here in France, where one of the largest food services companies is using us to do the equivalent of Amazon Go for restaurants. And so they are using AI to take a picture of a food tray that their customer would buy. It would have an assortment of different types of food. And then the picture is automatically run through a AI inferencing model to understand what the customer bought, whether it was a can of Coke or a salad or some or a dessert, and present the customer with a bill instead of the customer having to go through a manual cashier-based checkout process. We have seen uses of AI in manufacturing, for example, where another end user, this is outside of France, they are using image analytics, machine vision, to inspect every package that comes out of their assembly line in their factory, and to figure out whether the package is well-formed or malformed.
So the difference here is we used to have like somebody responsible for that and pick, one on every 1,000 items and take a look on that. Now it's going to be everyone at the real time. That's the
exactly. A lot of these processes, which were very manual, but they were also very tedious, can now be offloaded to AI.
And I suppose it will be 100% proof. I mean,
I think we have a long way to go there. Okay. I would say, in fact, I was having dinner with the chief digital officer for our France food services customer, and he had a good observation. It's very easy to get to 97% accuracy.
But then the 3%, that it's very difficult.
It's very difficult. But I think that's how every technology starts and evolves. Is I remember I started my career at VMware, and for the first time ever, we were creating this concept called virtual machines, and they were 20%, 30% slower than physical machines. But if you look at it now, you can hardly see the difference.
Well, it's the same with voice recognition or translation.
Exactly.
I mean, they used to be not so good, and now they're very
close to perfect. Exactly. So I am very optimistic about AI. In fact, that again brings us back to Nutanix's core mission, is if we can make AI democratic, if we can make AI more accessible to more users in the world, we think we are going to be able to mature the technology much, much faster. And so, for us, that mission means a lot to us, is how can we get it in, make it practical for the most number of people in the world to be able to use it.
The idea faster and simpler, that's
faster and simpler.
Okay,
exactly.
Well, Satyam Vaghani, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.